Hello, Welsh Forest Focus. It's good to be back talking football as we look ahead to Everton versus Nottingham Forest on Sunday and preview that game in the company of, well, there were supposed to be two people here, but we just lost one of them in Michael Temple due to some Wi-Fi issues. But hopefully he joins us and I'll add him into the conversation. But in the meantime, Pete Blackburn is with me. Pete, afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Nice to be here.
Good. Pete's saving his voice, by the way, because he's had tonsillitis. So he's on economic talking. So I'll chip in as well for this as much as I can. Like I say, good to be back talking football after the last few days about tickets. And it's a very big game for Forest. 1 point behind Everton going into this one. Obviously, Everton lost 6-0. So we'll discuss the impact of that game. But just general thoughts on the match, Pete, how you're feeling about it going in?
Big old sense of deja vu for me, I think. General feeling that we head into a game at a real moment of opportunity for us, another massive week and a moment of weakness for the opposition. And it feels like one of those games where we really need to take advantage of that situation and, force the win. But I say deja vu because it feels like we've been here before so many times in the last few weeks and months where we've had an opposition that's taken a hammering or has had 5 or 6 of those first team players out of the squad. We've not quite taken those opportunities most of the time. So hopefully it's going to be a different story this time. I'm certainly buoyed by what we saw in their last game against Chelsea, and I've got a sort of strong sense that we've got some of the tools to hurt them. But there's obviously things we need to worry about in their side as well, and we'll get onto that. But yeah, real sense of deja vu. But I'm hoping that the outcome will be different this time around.
Excellent, good news. Temps is, I was going to say he's finished eating his Easter egg. I can tell he absolutely hasn't finished and he's still chewing it, but I'll add him in now. Wi-Fi's restored. How are you, Michael Temple?
Well, I've hidden the Easter egg just out of shot. If my kids are watching, it was a dairy milk that I bought from Esso on the way home today, and I'm feeling fantastic. A little bit disposable because clearly this thing can carry on without me, which is great. No one's bigger than the podcast, and looking forward to Forest Everton. How are you boys?
Very well, very well. Your picture's a little stilted, but your sound's good, so we shall persist. Give us your thoughts on the game, Temps. Pete referenced missed opportunities of late. Your picture's restored. Missed opportunities of late. How are you feeling about it?
Super confident, potentially overly so. I've heard the arguments about a reaction from Everton, but they looked so poor to me after missing that early tap-in beneath the bar that I just think we could really get into them. And I almost hope we approach this like a home game, get on top, pick the wingers, and do what we like to do what we do when we're at our best, be front foot, try and blow them away, get Morgan Gibbs-White on the ball as much as we can. So I don't buy the fact that Everton could react. I think they could go into their shells. I think there's tremendous pressure on them. They found themselves sucked into a position they should never be in. And I feel relatively confident that we can go and get 3 points. And in my route to safety, that's exactly what we do.
This is a hypothetical question, Pete, really, because we don't know the result of Luton v Brentford now, but we will do after, on Saturday before we play. What impact do you think that will have on it? Say Luton lose, does it make it even more of an opportunity? Say Luton win, that puts so much pressure on us, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess if Luton lose that game, then hopefully it's something we can use as a bit of something extra to fire us on, and I'd hope that they would be able to do that. On the other hand, if it goes the other way, then I think we're going to have to be trying to shut out the noise and just do our own job, I suppose. There's not a great deal of games left, but I think there's still going to be quite a lot of twists and turns. And I guess in general, we're going to have to just try and play our own game and do our jobs. But yeah, the way that this plays out now is that we're always going to know what we got to do because of Luton playing before us. So it is going to bring pressure or opportunity. But whichever of those things it is, I just think we have to start using those motivations to drive us on and start getting the job done. We need to be much more ruthless in front of goal, and we just need to be a little bit more concentrated at the other end. And if we can do that, then we've still got a great chance of survival.
Let's talk about the opposition a little bit before we get into our lineups in more detail. I suppose, Temps, the big thing is they lost 6-0 last time out, which must play into the dynamics of the game. Fans will want a reaction from Everton, and I feel like it gives us a big advantage. But what are you expecting from Everton?
Potentially a bit of negativity, potentially a bit of trying to wait for the set piece, force the corner, hunt the ball in from deep. I don't think they're going to set up to play free-flowing attacking football, because that's not what they do. They don't score many goals. And the stat that's often quoted about the relative percentage of their goals from set pieces tells you a couple of things. They fill the box in quite a basic, almost championship manner that's effective, ugly football. But more than that, they don't score many goals full stop. So that the high prevalence stat is a little bit nullified by that. I think the way that we get them on the back foot and frustrate them isn't by camping and defending for our lives. It's by having possession in their own half and forcing them to sit back, taking the game to them, recycling the ball wide, letting our dribblers get at them nice and early, get a couple of their back four on yellow cards. I really think we can take the game to them. Of course, if we find ourselves taking a lead or conceding in the game, we're gonna alter our tactics somewhat. But while it's 0-0, I hope it's us dominating the possession, going through the cycles, taking the game to them, because there's an opportunity to absolutely demoralise Everton off the back of the week that they've just had.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to I've already done the opposition preview, Pete, and that'll be out tomorrow with Toffee TV, and they said they'll gladly concede possession. This is how Everton play. He described it as war football, which isn't encouraging. It's literally, we're going to get set pieces and we're going to load it in your box. And it's not just Forest. That's how Everton play by the sound of it. He told me they have zero threat from open play, which I think was a little bit of hyperbole, but we know what we're getting into here, don't we? Nothing should be a surprise on Sunday.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if you look at, I was having a look at the sort of lineup that I thought they might come up with. I'm expecting there's a chance that it'll be pretty similar to the last time out, but that you'd expect a couple of changes because Calvert-Lewin will probably come back. There's a chance that Gay might come back in the middle for Garner, who was hooked early doors, and they will just go full physical, full war, to put it as your pal from Toffee's TV did. I mean, for me, I think it's a case of us trying not to get dragged into the way they want to play, because our strengths are not the same as theirs. And I totally agree with Temps. I think we have to take the game to them early doors. It may be the case that Dyche can get a reaction from them from that last game, but if he can, I'm pretty sure we can undo that pretty quickly with an early goal, and that crowd will turn. And I don't think those players are a particularly strong collective group. Their form is absolutely insane. It's so bad. They've got one win in 15 or something along those lines, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I look at their team and I see aerial strength throughout it, lots of physicality. They're going to be able to win the ball, but when they win it, they can't keep it. They've absolutely no skill in terms of being clinical in front of goal. So I think we just have to assert ourselves on the game and do what we do best. And, we've got players who can hurt a team like Everton. I think we've got players who can hurt most teams in this league, to be honest. But if we can capture a bit of that Fulham intensity and intent, then I think we can hurt them early doors, and I'm not sure that they can necessarily recover from that. On the other hand, I think if they're able to hurt us in some of the ways that we've seen in recent weeks, they're pretty good at holding on to a lead when they've got it. They've got the sort of team that can probably play that sort of game and then make it a real battle, a real war, and that's just not going to suit us. So I think it's pretty obvious where the blueprint for Forest is.
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit of a cliche, Temps, but they always say the first hour is big in cricket, the first goal's big in football. I feel in this one, because I don't think the crowd will turn, but they'll be very restless if we get the first goal. And if Everton get it, like Pete says, it doesn't favour us at all trying to come back in a game like this. I think the way Everton will be so cynical. That home game was ridiculous. The amount of time wasting they did, and it'll be just as bad at their place, I'm sure, if they score first.
I don't think that here we go again narrative helps either sets of fans, does it? You just feel so buoyed by your team if you go up in a game and kind of negative and petrified. That's hard to say, isn't it? Petrified, frankly, at this stage of the season, if you find yourself down in a game that you expect to win. I think this is one of those rare games at the bottom where both sets of fans should be relatively confident. And if they're mapping out the rest of the season, this is a game that they'll both be targeting. I just think that it's likely to be more of a chess match from Everton than it is for us. It's not, well, we'll see what happens with Luton, like you say, but this won't be framed as must win if Luton don't get a result on the Saturday. I think it's an advantage playing the day after in this kind of scenario that we find ourselves, where it's simply us against another side, keep matching or beating their result, and everything's rosy in the garden. But yeah, first goal is absolutely huge in this one. If we score too early, I wouldn't want us to change our tactics if we find an effective way to play against them. A la Fulham, let's keep going at it and try and get this 1-1 in the first half. If we find ourselves up 65, 70 minutes, then we do have to shut up shop. So I know we'll come on to the team selection, but the two debating points are pretty obvious, and we'll know an hour before the kickoff exactly what Nuno's thinking and how he's going to attack this one. The team lineup will absolutely inform us of the tactics.
Just before we do get into our lineup, then a bit of Everton injury news as well. I think Dyche will do his press conference tomorrow, but they lost two right backs in the game at Chelsea. Patterson and Coleman went off, so it's going to be probably Godfrey at right back, who's a centre half, who's very athletic, but he's not going to get forward. So that kind of suits us, I would say, or Ashley Young. And then Branthwaite went off. I really hope he's out because Michael Keane's a bit of a downgrade. And I hope Pete referenced Calvert-Lewin. I mean, great if Calvert-Lewin's out because Beto isn't on the same level. So, but we can't keep relying on teams having injuries because we've had those opportunities before and not taken them. So we have to do our own side of the coin, I guess. Before we get into our team lineups, then quick word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. If you're not going to the game on Sunday, obviously it's away, so not too many of us are. You can watch it on the big screens at the Navigation. It's 1:30 kickoff. There is free entry, of course, food in the barbecue court, great service on the bar, etc., etc. You know what the match day experience is like. There's no better place to watch a Forest game than at the Trent Navigation. Right, let's talk about our lineups then. Well, I've only got one lineup, but we'll talk around it because, as Temp said, it's pretty much cut and dried in probably 8 or 9 of the choices. So here is what Pete has got. Matt Sells in goal, Nico Williams, Niakate coming into the defence with Murillo, Olarena at left back, and then a midfield two of Dominguez coming in for Yates and Danilo, Gio Reyna retaining his place. I assume that's around Elanga's fitness, but I'll ask Pete. Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi in behind Chris Wood. Pete, talk us through your thinking there, and then I'll throw some names around to yourself and Temps.
Well, I'm expecting potentially a bit of criticism in the comments, not least because I've been an absolute hypocrite. I think not very long ago I said it's time for us to know what we do best and stick with some partnerships. And the first part of that was Hudson-Odoi and Elanga always play, and the second part was pick some centre-backs and stick with them. And I've sort of gone back on both those things. And to answer your question on Elanga, I am sort of taking into account the fact that he's probably not fully fit, but actually Reyna for me is a tactical choice. I quite liked what I saw from him in patches in the last game. But actually, I think it presents us with a real opportunity, both offensively and defensively in this game. We saw that he sort of comes inside and it gives us a chance to form a bit of a box midfield, which I think could be really useful. I mean, if you look at the Chelsea goals, I mean, it's one game. It's not a sort of a wholesale blueprint for us. But if you look at the Chelsea goals, the damage was done to Everton through the middle of the pitch, in the hole, just picking them apart on the edge of the box out there. And I think Reyna gives us an opportunity to do that with him and Gibbs White potentially linking up. I don't think Everton are going to give us much space in behind, so I think it's a chance that Elanga might be quite frustrated out on that right wing. And on the other side of the coin, the thing that worries me most about the Everton team is that potentially they've got a really powerful, destructive midfield that we might struggle to match up against, particularly if we're playing quite a positive double pivot, as I've picked there. So having 4 players who can drift central and try and counter that threat could be really useful for us, I think. So that's what I've gone for on that front. I guess the other controversial pick maybe is Niakate at the back. Definitely flies in the face of lots of stuff that I've said before, so I'm sorry for being a hypocrite. But I'm just starting to get the feeling that we maybe need a little bit more presence and leadership in the team, and I think he's probably the closest route we've got to that right now. Bolly would be straight in there for me if he was available, but it doesn't look like he's going to be. I mean, the problem we've got is pretty clear, isn't it? All of our centre-back options at centre-back in the top bottom 10%, I think, for effectiveness in aerial duels when you compare them to players in the top 5 leagues. So none of them have that as a strength. So you can't really argue you're bringing in Niakate from that angle. But he does bring height. He does bring experience. He was a captain at a previous club. he generally has played pretty well when he's played for us. He's certainly not been a disaster, and he was part of the centre back partnership with Murillo during that sort of early good run of form under Nuno. So I'm sort of tempted to go down that route, but equally I wouldn't be upset if Elanga and Omobamidele are playing. And then I guess final one to talk about is probably Yates. I think some people will be making the argument that you need Yates and the team in an away game like this. It's going to be a battle, as you said. We're also going to be facing a lot of aerial balls, and he's one of our best defenders of those situations, I guess. For me, I'm sort of spinning the other way around. I think we need to focus on what we do best and really try and dominate the game from the early stages. I think Dominguez brings a lot of the skill set that Yates has. He can break up play, but he's also much more talented in terms of getting the ball up the pitch quickly and joining in with attacks. So that's sort of where I'm coming at it from. I think the team selection is a signal of intent, I guess. So those are my thoughts. But I appreciate I've been a massive hypocrite, so sorry about that.
Before I go to temps, let me give a second plug for navigation, because Ian noticed in the comments I said etc., which is hardly the most effective marketing for a commercial partner. So you can also see Rick Parfitt Jr.'s band play on Saturday 11th of May, straight after the Chelsea game. Free entry. Hopefully it's a survival party, and of course I'm sure they'll play it rocking all over the world. And I should speak to Rick in the next week or so, because he has become a Forest fan. Now he lives in the area, and I think his wife is a Reds fan as well. Right.
But Matt, you also said that the NAB was the best place in the world to watch Forest, and I think the City ground would probably trump it. So
Yeah,
whilst you took a little bit away of etc., you did pump the ties a little bit falsely by saying they're better than the real thing, which they wouldn't mind. They'd accept that.
I'm so glad your Wi-Fi is cleared up to highlight that. Thank you. Right, before we go to temps, Pete referenced their aerial duels very good, kindly. Dan Cook, aka Danscape, has sent me some stats from FBref around this, around goals conceded from corners and defensive aerial duel wins. So goals conceded for corners in the last few seasons. Some of these are 46 games, obviously. We have conceded, it was 2 goals in the promotion season from corners. It was 9 last season, and it's 14 this season, which is incredible. The general average before that was it was 8, 9, and 10 in the previous 3 seasons. So you can see how bad we've got in that area. And then aerial duels won by defenders. The average for our centre halves in the last 3 seasons is 64%, but Murillo this season is 46%, and Omobamidele is 45%. The good thing is Niakate was low last season, as Pete said, at 56%. But this season, I know it's a small sample, but he has won 75% of his aerial duels, which would suggest he could come in and do a job for us. Right. What's your thoughts, Temps, on the centre-half selection, first of all? Then continuity, or are you bringing in Niakate or someone else if they're available?
Continuity for me, just because I feel that Niakate in big games has become a victim of the pressure and made some rash decisions. Admittedly, a couple of those where he's been playing out of position at left back. I'm still haunted by Newcastle last season. The criticism of him is that he makes strange decisions under pressure. I think Omobamidele a little bit more level, perhaps as pacey, and just I don't know, a little bit more structured, less erratic, less likely to fly out of the line. So in that delicate toss-up between the two, I'd play Omobamidele for continuity. However, Pete made the king point, which is that if Willy Body's fit, he plays alongside Murillo all day.
And what about, I'll throw to you as well, Temps. The other big question is probably Yates versus Dominguez. Sangare might be in the mix as well. I don't know if you would make a case for him, but it feels like Yates versus Dominguez for that other spot. Where are you landing on that?
I think there's 2 more positions to debate. So I think the 8 of the 11 that Pete picked are inked in. We've spoken about Omobamidele. The other 2 are Yates. Sorry, the other 2 are Dominguez and Reina, making a case for Yates and Elanga. The case for Yates is he's made for an away battle against someone in and around your standing, provided that he's not going to go around chopping trees for the first 20 minutes and get himself on a yellow card. So a disciplined, energetic yet physical performance from Ryan Yates is what we need. He's had a wobble. He's had a couple of weeks that he probably wants to forget. He hasn't been at his most effective, but I think this game is designed for Ryan Yates more than the others. And the best of Dominguez has been great, calling on the press, pushing them their own third, winning back possession, high up the pitch. Certainly a more progressive passer than Ryan Yates, but he does fly out of the shape. He doesn't screen the back four in quite the same disciplined way that Yatesy does. So it's a pretty bold and seismic change to take out Yates's, I suppose, more trundling qualities, without being unkind, with the kind of slightly more flairful, all energetic, higher up the pitch version of centre mid that Dominguez plays. So Dominguez got a reasonable chance of playing. I just can't help but think that the game profiles to Yates' profile. So I think he could get the nod there. And I think Elanga plays if he's fit. Reyna's had the opportunity last time out because Elanga couldn't. He didn't play as a winger. He played right side in the defensive shape, but found himself popping up in the 10 spot more and more, particularly as Morgan naturally drifted left side. So they're the three positions that are up for debate for me. To make it interesting, I'll go against the grain with Pete. I'll say pick Omobamidele, Yates and Elanga, but Pete could well have the 11 nailed down.
So for me, I'd probably still pick Omobamidele just for continuity, but I would pick Bolly. I can see the case for Niakate. I was just thinking of the Liverpool game where we were on the back foot all the way through, and it was Omobamidele and Murillo in that one, and then we did stand up pretty well. And also, like, I saw a stat today. It's actually a really frustrating stat that we remain defensively. Our numbers are really good in open play. We're top four for last 6 games, but we're so horrific at set pieces. So I can certainly see the case for making a change there, but I just favour a bit of continuity. I would pick Dominguez, like Pete. Everton are going to play 2 6s. I don't think they're really going to bomb anyone forwards. So I'd rather try and assert a bit of control in open play and get Dominguez and Danilo on the ball. It does put even more pressure on the set pieces. I don't think we have to win every set piece. We just have to, make it more difficult. Win second contacts, don't give free headers, stuff like that. So it's obviously you putting yourself at a disadvantage defensively, but I'd rather be positive and go for it for me. And then the other one, I'd probably pick Elanga if he's fit, just because of pace. Like Everton don't look a very athletic side to me. When you saw that Chelsea game and the positions that, Cole Palmer's on a different level. It's not a fair comparison. The positions he was taking up and the pace of Madueke when he wasn't arguing over taking a penalty was a real problem for them. So that would be my choice. There's another interesting shout. Someone said about Elanga on the left wing, Pete. That feels like an area that we can exploit if Everton have got a makeshift right back. It feels to me like a Hudson-Odoi type game or an Elanga type game where they're going to have to play well for us to win the match.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to make the point on Hudson-Odoi. I don't think you need to move Elanga out there to expose that weakness. I mean, Hudson-Odoi doesn't have the same explosive pace that Elanga has, but that sort of explosive pace is only really useful if there's room to drive into. And I'm not totally sure whether that's going to be the case. I think with Hudson-Odoi, he's so good at beating a man with that really quick shift of the ball. It might not be sort of particularly mysterious stuff. You sort of know where he's going to go and what he's going to try and do, but he does it so quickly that he very often makes room to get a shot off. I think he can definitely hurt Godfrey, who I really rated as a Championship footballer, and I thought he'd probably settle into Premier League football a little bit more than he has done, to be honest. But he can be a bit lumbering, and he's a bit of a yellow card risk as well, I think. So yeah, for me, I think Hudson-Odoi up against Godfrey is a real sort of potential match-winning area for us.
I was laughing at one of the comments that I deleted, probably for a favour for the person. Yeah. What about Gibbs White? Temps again. I'm not comparing Gibbs White to Cole Palmer, but Cole Palmer just absolutely murdered Everton on Monday. Again, we've said this before. If Gibbs White really turns up and plays particularly well, then we probably win most games against the level of team we're playing: Everton, Sheffield United, and Burnley. There's a big onus on him. How much are you looking to Gibbs White in this one?
Let's talk about Cole Palmer for a second, because I'm having a bit of a love-in in my dream team, doing far better than last year. I think I'm top 400 in your, I was going to say mini league, Matt. You've got about 1 million people in there now. But for an English midfielder to be scoring freely as he is, to have the confidence to shove established internationals out of the way, to take penalties, and to be confidently playing in that position for Chelsea is great to see. I think he profiles slightly different to Morgan Gibbs-White because he is aggressively looking to score goals. Has he got 20 for the season now? Is he tied with Haaland for top scorer in the Prem? I mean, that's just outstanding. No one's been in that kind of space since Frank Lampard. There are massive differences between what he does and what Morgan Gibbs-White does. I think Morgan tries to be more creative, probably enjoys the assist more than the goal. We've seen he's got an eye for it. And I think also this is his team now. We've had debates about his very presence in the 11 in the past. But I think ever since he was signed, the intention had been to build a side around him, 2 wingers, physical striker, 2 screeners in behind him, let him have the freedom to pick up the ball in pockets of space, wriggle out of it and do the next thing. If that's beating a man, threading the through ball, having the pop shot himself, he's proved to be more than effective. And if this is anyone's team, it's Morgan Gibbs-White's team. I genuinely believe that. He knows, irrespective of what's around him, he's going to play number 10 week in, week out, even if he has a bad game. Let's just remember that Fulham performance. It was like majestic. I don't think he did anything wrong throughout. Showed how creative he can be, how comfortable he is on the ball with 4 and 5 defenders around him. When he plays well, we play well. When he's off it, we look a bit blunt, sluggish, can't bring others into the game. Great understanding developing between him and Danilo, who gets up with him. That's effective because he has runners out wide, because he has Chris Wood now occupying centre halves. I think he's one of the major reasons why we're going to win the games we're going to win between now and the end of the season. And we need him to play well if we're going to achieve positive results.
Thank you very much to Daniel Harris for becoming a member as well. Appreciate the support, Daniel, and anyone else that's signed up of late. Very good of you. Last player I was going to ask you about, Pete. I feel like Chris Wood's probably our most important player, not necessarily for the goals that we need him to score, but just on set pieces. He's going to be our tallest player. There's a real emphasis on him to do a big job for the team on Sunday, I feel.
Well, yeah, I guess a bit more pressure on that as well after last time out, and an opportunity to do just that missed as well. Yeah, no, he's incredibly important at both ends. I think also he's sort of grown into this quite calming leadership figure in the first 11 as well. And we need as much of that as we can get at the moment because, I mean, the pressure of being in this relegation situation is extreme. I think we desperately need calm heads. We haven't got an awful lot of experience through the team, so I think it really counts. But yeah, from set pieces, we desperately need him there. If we're in that same sort of makeup defensively as we were before, we need him attacking that ball and winning the first contact. So yeah, I think he'll be absolutely crucial. And I mean, there's every chance that we'll need his goals at the other end to win the game as well.
Last question, Temps. Would you take a draw now, considering Everton have won more points than us overall this season, but their form is horrific? But our away form's horrific. It's the battle between 2 not very good teams. Are you taking a draw right now or not?
I'd take a draw if Luton lose. I would. I think that's the most important context for this. Not us against Everton, us against Luton. Every game's us against Luton. Every round's us against Luton. I don't really care where we end up as long as it's not the Championship. So yes, if Luton find themselves getting turned over on Saturday, that would impact my decision making, my tactics. I'm not sure that's how it works in the Premier League. I'd like to think they've set up on a team and a shape all week, and this won't make too much of a difference in Nuno's thinking. But logically for me, if I'm playing Football Manager and trying to avoid relegation, I just want to do one more than Luton. So I'm definitely picking 8C if Luton lose.
Interesting. I think that is a key point. Though we've just got to match Luton now, and we've got City next week. So if we probably realistically chalk that one off as a defeat, I feel like this is a big game. Any final thoughts on the match before we move on, Pete?
No, nothing else from me.
Good. That was economical with the words there. Right. Now I have to check my notes because I thought you'd give us some detailed soliloquy there.
Right. I told you I was going to be concise. I've got to preserve my vocal cords.
Very true. Very true. Right. We'll take a second to thank our second sponsors for the episode, Home Move Estate Agents. I met Ben Sales, who runs that, who's a sponsor. He came to the live show. Lovely guy, him and his mate, proper genuine Forest fan, and I think he fixed Taiwo up with a house as well, and he said very nice things about Taiwo as a person. And
is his middle name Lots of?
He wishes. Most importantly, it seems like he does a very good job. 5-star rating in Google, so definitely a great person to go to if you are buying or selling a property. Right. Any other business before we move on or finish, Pete?
Yeah, I'm sure based on the comments that I've already seen so far, people watching and listening will be relieved to hear that I'm not going to go into the ticketing situation in any depth. Like I've wasted.
Mate, you'll get clobbered for 4 days on Twitter afterwards.
I don't think there's any concern about me being called a Tory, but yeah, I've already had a fair bit of slagging off on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, I've wasted quite a lot of hours of my life ranting about that this week. I mean, as we understand it, there's a bit of communication between club and supporters groups, so hopefully something good comes in the coming days. But just on a sort of personal note, and not seeking to represent anyone else's views, I just wanted to say that I'm tremendously grateful to Greg and Matt and the rest of the lads and ladies involved with Forza Garibaldi for what they've done for our football club. I think it's easy to forget now, given that we're a Premier League club and we've come so far, for the time being at least, just what they did for the bonds between club and fans and the atmosphere in a stadium, which had, I think most of us will remember, had veered between being quiet or silent and toxic at the worst of times. I think Forza breathed new life into the football club, and they set some of the foundations for Steve Cooper to have that platform to re-energise a sleeping giant, I guess. And I think we have to thank them for the way that pundits and other fans speak about the City Ground now as one of the best, noisiest experiences anywhere in English football. So I'll forever be grateful for all those efforts. And, you know, for me personally, they helped me fall back in love with being a Forest fan, you know, from that very first boat trip and all of those great memories. I think in recent days, obviously, Forge have taken a bit of a stand on the ticketing issue. And I know that the people involved have been getting sort of both praise and a lot of abuse for what they've done. I personally stand wholeheartedly behind what they communicated and the actions they've taken. But regardless of whether you agree or not, I think now is the time to remember that nobody's earned trust more than they have. Those of us who've over recent years gone to games and simply enjoyed the hard work of Forza rather than putting in those long shifts of the creative process, the design, the assembly and communication about displays, all that stuff, we can all repay them for their efforts by trying to understand what they're saying now rather than just reacting. On Twitter today, somebody described their actions as petulant. I just thought it'd be worth putting on record today that could not be possibly further from the truth. I think anyone who saw your excellent podcast with Greg last night will have seen that it hurt him to be in this position and to be taking the steps that he and others have. These people are not petulant. They're thoughtful, they're committed, and they've been brilliant for us. In my view, they're the very best of us in terms of Nottingham Forest and Nottingham Forest fans. So I just wanted to put on record that I'm really thankful for what they do.
Good man, good man. Matt Oldroyd is the person Pete referenced, not me. Some people seem to think I'm part of Force. I'm not, but I'll echo the words that Pete said about the great work that they do, certainly. Temps, anything from you before we go?
Well, Pete's done the heartfelt piece, so I just thought I'd take the mick a bit and just ask what that tally chart behind you on the wall is all about. Do you put a new notch on there every time you buy a blue hoodie?
I've got black hoodies as well. Paint samples by Mrs. Davies to revamp the office. She also did this very fetching Forest Focus poster, which is not for sale, but if people express an interest in mass merchandising of it, it might be.
Everything's got a price, yeah.
Oh,
that's your reputation, yeah. That's not the thing to say this week either.
I've just undone all the great work that Greg and Pete have done. But no, Pete, you very eloquently put what everyone's thinking there. I would hope. You think of the 1,001 things that a fan group could do, and you look at the things that Forza do, it's absolutely elite.
Certainly is. The only thing I was going to say was I'll give a plug for the Parkinson's Walking Football Group for people who've had brain issues. I'll do that on Monday properly. I can't do it justice now because I haven't got all the details to hand, but that was one thing. Someone, Paul, I think it was, said about FA Cup replays being scrapped and a wider football issue. I think that's a real shame. I used to cover non-league football and lower league football, and the fact that, you know, the smaller clubs are going to miss out on that chance of a really lucrative replay. I think it's a big loss. I remember I was like working in Burton, and Burton Albion got a replay against Man United, and it transformed the whole football club. So that was one thing that's a disappointment. And I see the Premier League have said they'll give, I think it's 33 million quid into their grassroots fund as a bit of a sweetener. But yeah, that was a disappointment for me. Right, I think that's just about everything. We shall be back tomorrow with the Everton fan preview. As I said, that's recorded, so that will be out for tomorrow. Lee's asking about merch. I will do some merch, and I will do a Patreon for audio listeners as well at some point. These chaps will know I'm just way too laid back. I need to get cracking on all that stuff. So yeah, please be patient with me. End of the season, it will be in place, I'm sure, and we'll do another live show. Forest Focus buckets hats. Have they moved on? We moved Temps. You'll know this from cricket merchandising. We moved on from bucket hats now.
I was with Ben Duckett last night, who just launched Duckett's Buckets. So I'll mention that in my Anywhere business. If you want a top class bucket before Matt Davies gets himself into gear with Forest Focus merch, check out Duckett's Buckets. He's done a fantastic little job there. Have bucket hats had their moment? Man, I'm looking out my window. It's drizzly as. I remember the March, April of 2020 when we were all sunburnt by this point, and people's tans are still fading. I'm playing football tonight and dreading it. I'll probably have a skin on underneath. So it's not bucket hat weather yet, mate, but give us a month and we'll all want one. And you might even have got yourself organised enough to have a few in stock by then. So yeah, I think the bucket phenomenon's got another year to run.
Hopefully so. Well, I'll probably get them out in about a year when they have died. Then that's the way it'll probably work. Right. Everton preview tomorrow, and then post match on Sunday as normal with Mark and Mikey. Very much enjoyed everyone's company today. Good to talk football again, as I said. And if you haven't already, do us a favour, hit like on this video. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't. You can become a channel member. And please give us a nice 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Pete Blackburn, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure, as always.
Glad your voice held up. You were very much an injury doubt this morning, but you've battled through and taken something to get. That sounds bad. Taken something to get you through.
I'm just so ruddy brave.
Exactly. You're a hero amongst men. Michael Temple, thank you very much.
Thanks. So I'm going to finish my little girl's Easter bunny now. It's got its ear left to take in, and that's that. That's that one gone.
You're doing her a favour. Kids have so many Easter eggs. I'm eating my son's Easter egg as well, and he doesn't know it. So I'm just trying to be a good supportive dad in that sense, taking that bullet. Right. Good to have everyone with us. Have a good day, everyone. And like I say, we shall see you soon.